What's the best way you've seen someone rebel against school rules? I was at a private school that had rules about the length of boys' hair. One guy in particular always ignored the rule and the administration would tell him to get a haircut every so often, but he never did. Eventually when his hair got about down to his shoulders, the principal pulled him aside and told him his hair was twice the allowed length and by next week it needed to be shortened by half. Monday rolls around and he comes in with half his head shaved and the other side as long as ever. We were impressed by literal interpretation of the principal's request, but it still ended up with him getting a suspension for a week and he had to shave the other side before he could come back. I went to private school that told me I couldn't have hair past my neck. I loved having long hair, so I did it anyway. They told me my hair had to change over the weekend, so I dyed it pink, which was also against the rules. Long story short, I'm no longer at that school. Should have tied the hair and made a bun out of it on top of your scalp. Technically it wasn't past your neck. A buddy of mine was caught messing with his phone during class. Back then, the school rules were that if you were caught, your phone was confiscated for an entire day and you couldn't get it back until the next day. This was before smartphones, and the rules have changes since the 10 years that I graduated there. So, buddy hands in his phone, but doesn't seem too worried about it. He waits a couple of classes until lunch break and asks me to come with him. He's gonna get his phone back. We go to the staff room where the confiscated phones were held and asks a teacher there if he could copy down a phone number into my phone so he could call his dad later that day. Teacher agrees and gives him the phone. I hand him mine and we wait for him to copy the number. When he's done, he gives me mine back and sticks his own phone in his pocket. He was known as a bit of a joker, so when he jokingly said, "Welp, thanks a lot, sire," the teacher immediately laughs, tells him to stop messing about and to give the phone back. Laughing and joking about being caught, he does. But not really. See, he had a second phone, exact same model, except this one was broken. Wouldn't charge anymore, he said. So, when he stuck his good phone in his pocket, it was right next to the broken one. When the teacher made him give back the phone, he just gave back the broken one. It was the best switcheroo I have ever seen in my time at that school. He was so fluent, so nonchalant about the whole thing. It was amazing to see. Yeah, that rule is a terrible rule. Thank goodness I've never been in a school with that rule. My phone's my only alarm, and without it, I'd sleep in an extra 5 hours. My old school went from not having that rule to having that rule this year, and I'm just over here like what the frick. Friend was told in high school by his guidance counselor not to waste his time applying to his dream school because he wouldn't get in. He got mad off and went to the principal, who told him it was the counselor's job to give her best opinion, so he trusts whatever she says. He applied anyways and got in. He took the acceptance letter, made a copy, and taped them to both the principal and counselor's door with "thanks for nothing" written on both. He didn't even go to that school, he couldn't afford it, but it was the principle of the matter. The "I trust what my counselors say" thing is such a lazy attempt for the principal to essentially say, "I don't want to deal with trouble from my staff, so I won't even address the problem." I've had that problem before. A person reviewing my work wanted me to do something wrong. When I tried to bring this up to my boss, she just said, "Just do what they tell you." A few months later she called me into her office to complain about the quality of my work. I showed her the email of the reviewer telling me to do things this way and reminded her of the conversation where I tried to tell her about it. We had a French teacher who was really bad and most people barely tolerated. It happened a few times that whoever arrived first would stand outside her door as if waiting for her to show up and unlock it, and the rest of the class would just queue up behind them pretending to believe them. Meanwhile the teacher would just be sitting inside wondering where her class was. Me and my Spanish class did this once, but the difference was we loved our teacher and just wanted to play a joke on her. We also told her that the whole class was going to skip the next day and she didn't believe us. We skipped, except for maybe 3 kids, and got ice cream instead. We showed up at the end of the period and brought her ice cream too, and she just shook her head. What a woman. She's like a second mom to all of us. I regularly would text my German teacher and ask if she wanted anything from Chick-fil-A OMW back to school. For some reason, she never seemed to mind me being late. My daughters both went to a Catholic high school. My younger one had a bit of a wild streak. The girls were required to wear a skirt every day to school. My daughter did not care for this rule and wore her skirt around her head one day since the dress code required the students to wear a skirt, just not wear. I was told that she was wearing spandex underneath. That's how my daughter got a new rule in her high school dress code. Ooh, that's a good one. I also rebelled against that rule at my Catholic high school. First I wore pants until I got too many detentions, so I started wearing the absolute most obnoxious outfits that fit the dress code. Generally a leopard print skirt, knee-high zebra socks, and some other loud shirt. Or I would wear pants under the skirt. They changed the dress code the next year. Girls got to wear pants again. Honestly, I can understand the dress code requiring skirts not be too short. However, requiring that girls wear skirts seems fricked up. Like, hey, we want to see your legs, and then act like it's your fault. My high school was always issuing new dress code rules for the girls. Mini skirts had to be longer than your arm, no tube tops, etc. One day, all the boys dressed in drag, breaking all the rules. No violation because the dress code specified only girls. That's bullcrap. If you got long ape arms you gotta wear stuff down to your knees. If you got short ass T-Rex arms you can just walk around in your underwear. Yeah, I always hated my middle school's rule of your shorts must be as long as your fingertips when your arms are hanging down at your sides. I have always had super long arms, so my shorts would have to be a lot longer than what was cool at the time. This was back in early 90s. Then you'd have girls who were opposite and had short arms so they could wear short shorts. I don't remember too many teachers checking our lengths though, basically just in homeroom, so I would pull my shorts as low as I could on my waist to get away with it. The HS I went to had no dress code. Wear whatever with an appropriate reason. No one was ever distracted, and the average GPA was over 3.3 with a 99% grad rate. Elementary school had a ban on extreme hair colors. My brother shows up with fire truck red hair. Principal stops us both as we are entering the school and she's going off on my brother. She's berating him, saying, "Who do you know that has red hair like that?" Without skipping a beat, Ronald McDonald. Principal just grabbed him, dragged him into the office. My 4th grade brain was in shock that he just won up to grown up like that. She called my dad, and he promptly didn't give a frick, and months later bro went from red to green to purple. This is a delightful turn of phrase. Plot twist, their father's name was Ronald, Ron to his friends and close family, McDonald, and the dad's hair really was flaming red. The principal basically was being mean to a boy who wanted his father's hair color. "Hey Joe, aren't you supposed to be in class?" "Yeah." One word. Doesn't look like much in text, but he said it such full acceptance and resolution that the teacher didn't follow up or say anything else. Just, "Okay, got it, you're not going, I'll move on and not waste any more time here." And they kept walking. Sometimes attitude is everything. Sometimes you can say a lot with a single word. As a teacher, I never fight to make random kids in the hall follow the rules. It's a bad path to start on. I get enough stress from my own class, I can't help but laugh at the teachers I see constantly yelling at kids in the hall that they don't even know. Thank you. I hate teachers who over-enforce hallway rules. If a teacher walks into the bathroom while class is happening and there's a kid just sitting there, I get if they tell them to get to class, but it ultimately comes down to the kid's not gonna learn what's being taught and the teacher isn't affected. Me and my friends will just screw around in the bathroom during the passing period for a few minutes, but still get to class on time. One time a teacher walked in and was like, "You are all getting to class," then forced us out of the bathroom. As my friends were walking out, I walked towards the urinal because I needed to pee, and the teacher told me to get out again. I said I needed to go pee, but he didn't believe me, so I walked out, then walked in once he left. Another time was at my last school. Kids would hang out at the bottom of the stairs and talk, but the teachers didn't like this for some reason. They would always come and break up the crowd, so we just moved to the doorway where you had to go out to get to the buses. This was prior to smartphones circa 2002. One of my classmates was a regular class clown. He would buy brownies in the cafeteria and roll them up in his hand so they looked like a convincing piece of poo. He would then do all sorts of antics with this poo. Put it on seats, throw it at people, what have you. Obviously the school staff caught on and he got in trouble. This guy didn't go quietly though. He was required to sit alone at lunch for the entire school year. There were months left before summer. The one teacher who made sure his punishment was severe made regular rounds of the lunchroom to maintain order. She would pass his lone seat during her rounds. One day he made another very convincing pastry, sourced poo and had it ready for her when she passed. The entire lunchroom was watching out of the corner of their eyes while maintaining an alibi conversation with the people close to them. When she passed he stood up and snuck behind her and slipped the pastry poo in her purse that she was carrying on her shoulder, and he quickly ran back to his seat. The lunchroom burst into laughter and the teacher had no idea why. Until later, of course. The dude was an artist at rebellion. You really have to be a psychopath to do this. And by this, I mean forcing a kid to eat alone for a whole year. Hey, he seems to be struggling with impulse control and we're kinda worried about him. So we are gonna isolate the hell out of him in a public place for several months. In 3rd grade, early 90s, my brother did not want to participate in some sort of multiple class activity. He just hung around the edges until a teacher approached him and told him, "Now dear, you can't be here without participating." Brother took what she said to heart and waited for a chance to slip away. He made it about 3 miles before a family friend noticed him and drove him the rest of the way home. I remember mom being upset at him, but even more angry at the school for taking 4 hours to notice he was gone when they took a head count after lunch. One day my friends and I had gotten to school early for an extracurricular event. After the event we decided we weren't really feeling school that day and decided to do the 3-hour walk home. One of my friend's mother saw us about 2.5 hours into the walk. What did she do? At vending machines outside the buildings, but due to some shat vandalizing them, this understandably mad the school board off. The machines were put off limits, but could not be powered down due to some kind of contractual obligation of constant availability. In an effort to combat that, faculty were posted at the machines during class changes to prevent purchases. But, thankfully, no one was posted at the machines during class time. Mind you, this is 97, 99 era. We weren't happy as that was our sole source of caffeine on campus. We decided to heck with that and made purchases during class. Me, being the lithe tiny guy I was conscripted to be the buyer, while the teacher was either out of the room or indisposed, or let's be honest, intentionally distracted. I would collect cash and requests, 4 at a time, and hop out the emergency escape window that they had opted to not have an alarm on, and walk 20 to the soda machine and make my purchase. This went on for some time until the drink companies lambasted the school board for not restocking their dwindling supplies, allegedly as per contract. They put 2 and 2 together and realized that purchases were still being made. Apparently I was not the only gopher and lifted the ban on my last year. May sound like a stupid question, but what's the point of having vending machines if students were not allowed to use them? I bet contractual they weren't allowed to remove them. It wasn't a big defiant act or anything, but I loved it and it always stuck with me. One day in high school, we had a particularly hard snow. We were certain school would be cancelled, but womp womp. No dice. No one was allowed to leave the building during lunch. But a bunch of kids said frick it that day and ran outside to have a big ol' snowball fight. We all watched as they had an awesome time, and a couple of randos joined in. I was too chicken crap. They all got detention. But I know it was worth it. It was so simple and harmless, and I remember it almost 15 years later. That sucks that they gave detention for having a snowball fight. I swear, high schools treat their students like prisoners. A snowball fight is the perfect opportunity for the principal to jump in and be more than a dude behind a desk. So I went to high school in South Texas, an area in which it almost never snows. For me, this doesn't mean anything, but I have lived in most of the north for my life, so I know what it's like to play in snow. However, somehow it ended up snowing overnight. And by snowing, I mean like what snow looked like in the North Deep, and not just thin and watery. These were immensely heavy flakes. We were all sure that they would cancel school because Texas does not have salt machines or snow plows and the roads were super slick. A lot of parents didn't want their kids to go to school because they didn't feel comfortable with a bunch of new high school drivers on ice. Yet alas, they of course did not cancel school. A little rain knocks out a whole district, but a foot of snow and nothing. My mother made us take the bus because although she felt comfortable driving in snow being from Illinois, Texas drivers are more aggressive and the roads weren't properly cleared. I took the bus and it was like being on a safari tour. Kids were taking pictures of the icicles on trees and crap, all wide-eyed. It was funny. Once we got to school, though, the campus looked like a war zone. No one would go inside and had instead resorted to snowball fights on the entire campus and parking lots. Once the bell rang, of course no one went inside. I watched from the window as the vice principal went to the front of the school and commanded the kids inside, of course getting nailed in his bald ass head by snowballs. He finally managed to round up the rogue kids and we all went about first period. I had a relaxed teacher who knew no one would pay attention. Since half the class was missing anyway, she let us act out the Civil War with snowballs and took us outside. While we were playing outside, we all paused as we heard the fire alarm went off. The school came pouring out for the next 2 periods. Dude that pulled the fire alarm is a legend and lives on at our school till this day. He did in fact get arrested, along with another kid that thought it'd be smart to throw ice at a cop. That was the one time I saw the high school completely not have a handle on anyone. I half expected the vice say beat me and you get to play outside the rest of the day, then hand your asses to you. It's not really a rebellion against the rules, but a good friend of mine had a special talent to make teachers like him despite having no respect for the actual school system. He used to study on his own to ace the tests, rarely showed up to classes he didn't like, and still got perfect report cards with high praises from all the teachers. The height of it was where he convinced his homeroom teacher to come pick him up from the beach before an important test. He eventually went on to have a great military career, but if he ever gets into politics, I wouldn't be surprised if he somehow managed to convince everyone that world domination under his rule was their idea. I think I like this guy. Sounds like the type of dude who could lead us to world peace without anybody realizing what he's doing. Or, alternatively, lead us all to world annihilation. So let's hope he uses his powers for good. Technically if everyone is dead there can't be war. This Josh kid I knew had to take a crap, asked if he could go to the bathroom, and the teacher wouldn't allow him a hall pass in high school, which is the dumbest freaking thing ever invented anyway. So he got up, walked to the front of the room and crap his pants in front of the class, then blamed the teacher for it. I had a classmate in 12th grade get up to go to the bathroom. The teacher tried to block him and told him he should have gone between classes. He opens his mouth and just vomits his entire lunch down her shirt. Best story in this entire chain.